Okay, so I think we're good. I want to introduce myself again. My name is Andrew Soroka. I'm one of the Convergent Professional Services Group leaders and wanted to discuss the COVID-19 emergency response tool today. We have on the line Justin Dagan from Detrios, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yep, good afternoon, everyone. Justin Dagan from Detrios, one of the managing partners here at Detrios. We developed the COVID-19 emergency response tool that we're going to be talking about today, and partnering with Convergint on a number of aspects of that, technical and on delivery. And so I'll be providing the demo side of this, answering any technical questions. And back to you, Andy.
All right. So before we start, the one thing I want to let you know is that there is a chat window on the right side of the screen. If there are any questions, please chat in the window and we will answer them. It may wait until the end. If it's topical when we're on a particular subject, we may address it at that point in time. But there is a chat menu for you to be able to ask any questions. I'll also let you know this session is being recorded and will be posted on the Convergent website. So it will be available for anybody that can attend, and you're more than welcome to share that link as well. So, and first and foremost, I hope everybody is being safe out there. I know it's very difficult times here for everybody. So I think we all know the background of COVID-19, and as we all know, it's highly contagious. Can be, you can get it from touching surfaces that other people have touched, door handles, turnstiles, etc. It can also be, you can get it from being in proximity of someone that is infected. So one of the major issues with COVID-19 is that an organization doesn't really have a way to determine who an infected individual has had contact with. So there is a potential for people to be exposed, and you want to try to determine who was exposed versus, putting out blanket statements saying that there was someone COVID-19 positive and, potentially anybody could be exposed, which probably wouldn't be good, potentially causing panic. So we want to avoid that. So one of the benefits of an access control system is that cardholder reader history can be utilized to determine who an infected individual may have had contact with. So it's really valuable having the physical access control systems, or AKA PACS, available to read individual history. So the data for events can be utilized by an HR department, security departments, or administrators to be able to notify people that might have been exposed to an infected individual. So that will allow a reduction in exposure and allow an organization to maintain operations. So Convergint Professional Services Group and Detrios, we have partnered together. Detrios wrote this application that's the COVID-19 Exposure Report Tool, aka CERT, and it leverages card reader history to be able to identify potential exposure. So I'm going to go into key features of the product. So key features is there's support for multiple different PACS systems out there, including AMAG Symmetry, Vigilon ACM, Genetec Security Center, Honeywell ProWatch, Lenel S2 Netbox, Lenel S2 OnGuard, Open Options DNA Fusion, RS2 Access It Universal.net, Software House Secure 9000, and of about 2 hours ago, Software House Secure 800.
Yep. So quick word of note here. For those particular access control systems, you see versions listed in parentheses. Those are the specific versions that have been tested with the application. For many of these access control systems, that is not an exhaustive list of what versions the software will support. There's really no harm in running the application against whatever version of the software you may be running. And again, it's read-only database access that the application is using. So there's nothing that needs to be written to the database, no risk of corruption to the database. So if you don't see a specific version listed, so for example, a Vigilon ACM, you see 5.12 and 6.4, there's been a half dozen versions between those, all of which should be perfectly well supported, but are just not specifically tested based on what's available in lab environments.
Absolutely. So that is actually what this next slide's about. So I think Justin hit it pretty well. So one of the things to keep in mind is if there are major changes in the software, the scripts may not work. So CERT 9000 and 800 are extremely different. So that's why they had to be looked at differently and basically treated as completely different access control systems. For all intents and purposes, they really are. So we had to go through and test very differently. They had a different database management system, and we had to work through some tougher issues to be able to get CERT 800 to work. And one of the things to keep in mind is if your version doesn't work, you can look at potentially adjusting the SQL queries and adding your own packs. So with the application, which we will show some screenshots in a moment, there are SQL queries that are readily available to review and edit to meet your individual needs. And that includes the ability to add additional packs systems. And I'll explain how we get this tool to your customers. So on this call is both Convergint colleagues as well as customers that may be interested in this tool. So I'm going to show some screenshots, and then Justin's going to provide a demo. So one of the nice things with this application is it's not an installer. It is a group of files that you extract into a directory of wherever you'd like it to be, and you are able to run this application freely. So with that, the very first screen is you're going to have to pick your access control system. So depending on what access control system you have, you select it from a drop-down. I utilized OnGuard as that's, the system that I'm the most familiar with. And so you pick your access control system, and the next piece that you're going to do is you're going to put in your database server name as well as your database name. So you just need a connection information. To answer some people's questions individually, no, this application does not have to be running on the server. It can basically be running anywhere where you can connect to the database server. If you're utilizing an ODBC connection, which is really kind of an add-in for the bring your own packs option, then you will need to have an ODBC connection. The next piece will be Windows authentication or SQL authentication. So you basically need to authenticate into the database. Taking one step back with regards to database server name, instances are supported. So depending on the packs that you have, there may be different identifying fields. In the documentation that Detrios provides, it does outline which fields are being used for each individual packs. Now, that's not to say that you can't go into the SQL and adjust what you're utilizing as an identifying field. One of the things that Justin said in the last session, which is great, if you're using, for example, cardholder ID in Linnell, and that's not populated for a particular individual, you can populate it with a unique identifier and then plug it into this application. So if there are, a few people that you're trying to look up, you just put in an identifier and a cardholder ID, and then be able to use this tool to search them up. So one of the things that you can do with this application is also timeframes can be specified before and after a positive individual badged in at a reader. So you may want to know the correlation time before, because you may enter a door and then end up going to an elevator where you're waiting in line for an elevator to queue up. So there's always the potential for exposure. So if you went in before them, that infected individual might have just come in right after you, and there's still the potential for exposure. And then there's also the time and correlation time afterwards. This is done on a minute-by-minute basis, and yes, you can go up to several minutes. In some of the testing that I did, I went as far as 1,000 minutes and resulted with several hundreds of thousands of rows coming back for a high traffic area. So no, it does not require a outside connection from the security network. This is a standalone application. That's a great question. And we will discuss the PII issues in a second. So from there, you can enter the dates of exposure. So you put in a date time range in addition to the correlation. So if you know an infected individual came in via, March 7th, and they might have come through the door up to the 18th. And additionally, utilizing UTC time, you can have the time converted to a typical time zone. And one of the pieces here is, yes, there could be a concern for reports showing an infected individual's name. You do have the ability to obfuscate the name. So if the report does go out, the infected individual may not be listed at all. They'll be completely blocked from the output of this file. And you also have the ability to obfuscate the exposed individual's name. So if you're looking to get a idea of the magnitude of potential exposure, you can completely obfuscate all names involved. So that should comply and prevent any type of PII issues or any type of HIPAA complaints. So this idea is to protect the individuals. Obviously, once a report leaves your hands, you lose control of it. So if you have people's individual names in there, you do have a method to protect them. And one of the benefits here is as well, if you're not looking at individual people's names, you can say, hey, looking at this particular area, be it a building or whatnot, you can say that, people in this building have potentially been exposed. So you would have some ability to be able to notify people if you were in this building in this date time range, you may have been exposed to COVID-19. Justin, anything you want to add up to this point in time? I've been monopolizing.
No, I think we cover a few points while doing the demo as we go through each different piece of information. So if we're ready to jump into the demo, we can go ahead and do that.
Yeah. So this is just what an output would look like. Yeah. So let's jump into the demo, Justin.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and actually I'm going to share the entire screen here. And attempt to, make sure we get that shared. Push live, excellent, thank you. So this is the CERT application. So again, as Andy said, really nice thing about this application is it does not require installation. It's meant to be entirely portable and can be run anywhere within your network that can reach the access control database server. Now the application itself runs out of here, and we've got just a single exe file. When I run the application, as Andy said, the first thing I'm going to do is pick my access control system. I happen to have a local OnGuard system. I'm going to select OnGuard, point to my database server. Now, as Andy said, this does fully support the option for instance names, right? If I had SQL Express, I could put /SQL Express. It does also support the SQL on different ports. So you can do comma port, that's identified in the documentation as well. Windows authentication, I can test that connection, verify that I'm able to connect to the database. Then from there, I need to identify who the known infected individual is. This is my origin person. So in this case, because I'm using OnGuard, the documentation outlines, again, each access control system, which field is used to identify the person. This is the default field That can be changed. We'll talk a little bit more about that after the main demo. But in this case, it's the cardholder ID. So if I were to pull up my OnGuard system, I can see that my cardholder ID here is what I would want to use, using myself as the known individual. Now, when I run this, what I'm typically going to have is a scenario where this known individual self-reported to our company potentially 1 to 2 weeks after they were on site, by the time that they know that they've had a positive test and they know that they are COVID-19 positive. And what I'm looking to do is run this against a specific date range when I know that person was on site. So in this case, Justin Dagan comes to the company and says, hey, I've tested positive for COVID-19. I was on site last week, let's say from Sunday through Friday. And I know based on my facility that I want, let's say I'm going to say up to 5 minutes ahead of time for the badge read. So anyone who read their badge at the same reader as Justin, up to 5 minutes ahead of time and up to 5 minutes after. And maybe I want to change this up to an hour after. This should give me a very good idea of who came into close physical proximity with Justin, either just before, and then as Andy said, maybe went into the lobby, waited for an elevator together, got on the elevator together. That's the purpose of that few extra minutes before, and let's say up to an hour after. Now, because OnGuard is a system that uses UTC time for reporting and for event storage, you have the option to set what time zone you're choosing in your daytime. This is really just a convenience feature so that you know when I put March 22nd at 12 a.m., that's referring to the time in Eastern time. The results I get back are also going to be in Eastern time, just so I don't have to do that in-mind conversion from UTC to local time. I click generate report. You'll see I get a quick generating report. As soon as that data is generated, I'm going to get the option to save the file with that reporting data. Now, this was very quick because I have a small amount of test data. If you have a large amount of test data, it may take a few seconds. Just let that run. The report's going to give me the ID number I'm running this against, a start date and end date. I'm going to save that I'm just going to save that on my desktop. That's my report. So now this report that was generated, I can open up, and the idea here is this is a very simple output. All we're doing is generating a CSV that can be brought into, let's say, Excel, and I can use this data. I can report on this any number of ways. I can turn this into a table, do whatever else I need, merge this in to provide notification. In this case, you can see that I was the origin person, and in 2 different instances, actually, I exposed one Jason Higley based on this badge read, Dan Federico based on this badge read. And you'll catch the amount of time difference between the infected individual's badge read and the potentially exposed individual's badge read. So you know how close that potential exposure was, how close proximity those two people may have been.
And the negative value versus a positive value?
Yes, thank you. This value, in this case, these values are both negative. If I were to have instead run this report against Dan's ID, I would have received a negative value because my badge read was a few seconds before. So that negative value indicates a badge read before the infected individual, and a positive value indicates a number of seconds after the infected individual. So that's the core features there. Now, a couple of things I do want to mention. As Andy said, everything that the application is doing is all driven by SQL queries. So that is very intentional. While we are typically firm believers that when possible, using access control systems supported and exposed APIs is the best route for integration with that system. For this particular application, we are intentionally going direct to the database with, again, carefully written read-only queries that will not impact the functionality of that system, but in a way that does not require any licensed APIs that may have costs associated with them and that may have additional timelines associated with them. We don't want to put in a 1 to 2 week delay for customers to get a quote, get a PO, get the licensed API. All this is done directly in the database. Nice thing there also is it gives you a lot of freedom, as Andy said, with for options for professional services around this as well. So the application itself is absolutely entirely free. But there may be scenarios where the application needs to be customized for a specific company. So, if I'm not using cardholder ID to identify individuals, I have a couple options. I could either just say, well, now I'm just for this one report, I'm going to put any value in here. I'm going to put in, I could put in, this is test. I could make that my cardholder ID, and then I could just go ahead and run the tool against that same value. It doesn't have to be a value that means anything. It just has to be a value that uniquely identifies the correct person. And I can generate that same report against any value. But what's also nice is that, through Convergint Professional Services, you could actually have this point to other values as well. So if a customer is not as comfortable making those kinds of changes on their own, certainly that's where professional services could become involved to modify those queries to, say, maybe use an email address, give you something that provides for easy notification of the potentially exposed individuals. Anything to add to that, Andy?
No, I don't think so. There is a question here regarding the UTC time conversion. Does that include daylight savings time periods, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I can cover that. Yeah, so the UTC time conversion is done based on these at a point in time for each one of them. So yes, they would absolutely follow daylight savings time. And yeah, so daylight saving time is absolutely followed for this. We do have another question about additional access control systems. Will Brevo on air be supported? Very good question. Brevo on air for this particular application, for the CERT tool as released, will not support Brevo or any cloud access control system that does not have local database access. So again, I mentioned the way this tool works is with these direct database queries. That is only possible for systems that have a database that is accessible to the application. It does not necessarily need to be a SQL Server database. As Andy said, with Andy's support today, we were able to include Secure 800, which uses a non-SQL database, and both Vigilon and S2 Netbox do not use SQL databases. That's fine, but it does need to be a database we can connect to. So cloud applications like Brevo on Air will not be supported through this tool. Now, not to say that this same type of tool could not be written for Brevo. If you have a customer who needs this, absolutely you can reach out. I would start that conversation with the Convergint Professional Services team, and then that may involve in engaging Detrios for that. We are a Brevo partner. We do work with their API, but this tool would not do that.
Okay. Sorry.
I think that really covers the main points in the demo. There is very thorough documentation for this. I would recommend before running this that you read through this documentation. It's going to talk about a lot of the features Andy and I talked about, some of them in much more detail, including how you can add additional access control systems with this, what we call the BYO PACS feature, where you can implement additional access control systems with nothing but configuration and a SQL query. And this is actually exactly how Secure 800 support was added earlier today.
Great. So let's circle back to the presentation. Justin, I didn't cut you off, right?
Nope, absolutely. Nope, go ahead and kick back over. I just stopped sharing.
Okay. All right, so there are some questions coming in. So the thing that I think that's been touched upon, but I want to make 100% clear, is that this application is 100% free. There's no licensing whatsoever to it. It can be freely distributed. As Justin noted, it does not use any of the access control system packs out there, or excuse me, APIs. And so because of that, this is going directly to a database, and so there should be no additional charge. So using the product as it comes today, no charge for the application whatsoever. So as Justin noted, services are not required for deployment. You're more than welcome to take the application, utilize it in your environment, and it's free for you to use completely. Now, if you need any assistance with SQL customizations, let's say, for example, in OnGuard, you don't use cardholder ID whatsoever. And really, the best way to identify a cardholder is a badge ID, which that can have its own challenges. But let's say you do want to identify someone based upon a badge ID. That would require a customization to the SQL, and that would be something that would be potentially chargeable. And any type of feature enhancements, that would have to come through to Convergint PSG, and any type of enhancements would be at charge. So really, the application comes as is. It is 100% free, and any type of customization beyond that point, that would just be applicable charges for services. So, so as noted, Convergint has partnered with Detrios. So Detrios is a partner of ours that came up with this application. You may have noted the Northland Controls logo on the application. Justin, if you could talk about how this all came about.
Sure. Yeah, so this application, the idea for this application spawned from a OnGuard custom report that Northland Controls created and distributed freely, which provided this same data, but was specific to Linnell OnGuard using a custom report. We're also very close partners with Northland Controls, and we spoke to the team and said, hey guys, we love what you did here. We'd love to get this out there and use this for all of the access control systems that we are partners with. Is that something you'd like to do together? And they didn't have the resources or the expertise to do that. They said, we love the idea, run with it. And in return, we said, that's great. We want to make sure that we provide you guys credit. The idea was yours. And we're really thankful for them for doing that, for partnering with us, and again, for partnering with us and partnering with Convergint, right? It's great to see two competing VARs working towards a common goal for something that's really bigger than that competition. And so that's really a testament to both Convergint and Northland in seeing the value in working together at times like we're in right now.
Right. Yeah. So absolutely. So I saw the application, brought it to Convergint leadership, and said, "Hey, this is something we need to get out to the community." So for the collective good, we put aside competition. So really, the whole focus of this application is to get this out there and help organizations that are out there that might need assistance. So one of the questions here, and I think this is a good point to get into, what is unique in this app and simply running audit queries on readers inherent in most access control systems? One of the big pieces here is a correlation between two specific cardholders. Most reporting in access control systems out there, as far as I know, I can't think of a single report that correlates people to each other. Effectively, this is going through the event history and saying, hey, this person entered X door, and in this time period, this person went through X door. And for everything that I know, I don't know of any reports out there.
No,
that currently do.
Yeah, and I'd add to that also, Andy, you're absolutely right. So working with each of these different access control systems, this data, the raw data, is absolutely available in every system, or else we couldn't pull it. Where we're really trying to provide the value and the benefit to people with this tool is it saving a ton of time. So if I wanted to pull this data, let's say, again, for example, out of OnGuard, I would have to run a report for the infected person's badge history. And then I could either run for each one of those activities, I could run, say, give me a report for an hour on either end of that, pull out the data and place it somewhere else. I could run a report for all access events across all 5 days that that person was on site. Then I could try and filter out to just one person's records and then find the records on either side of it, but only for those same readers. It could take for a 5-day report for a single person at a decent sized facility. It could take an entire day or more to run this same report's worth of data, which takes just a few seconds. So that's really the goal, is not to, again, come up with a new way of thinking about access control or about reporting, but really to use the tools that we have to provide our customers and our partners with a better way to get access to their data. To a couple of these other questions, unless Andy, do you have anything else to add to that before I tackle a couple other questions?
No, I was actually going to get into the questions as well.
Okay. I would just talk to a couple of these. So DSX, Access Control, not a company that we are partners with, not a system we've worked with, but if you have customers on a DSX system, we'd certainly be happy to talk to you about the BYO packs. Again, that would be best reached out initially through the Convergint PSG team to talk about options for configuring that through the BYO packs capability, and with any escalation if needed, but that's likely something that could be done through the BYO packs. The tool itself does not collect any information. It doesn't save any information. The database, login, credentials, server, none of that are saved. None of the data that's reported back, it's saved in that one CSV file, and that's it. No data is collected, no data is sent back to Detrios. This is not a profit-making venture for us. This is time that we are just freely giving to creating this application, really in the hopes to just do whatever small part we can do to help kind of make this all an easier time, a safer time, allow organizations to provide notification to their personnel, their employees, their contractors and visitors about these potential exposures to really aid in more focused, targeted testing, which we believe to be important now and is going to continue to be important over the next 6, 9, 12 months. Obviously none of us know at this point. And then the last question, has this been tested with all of the access control systems that have been listed, and will it affect the performance of the system? Every one of these queries has been tested with every one of these access control systems. Again, the specific versions that it's been tested with is listed in the documentation. There's no expectation that any of these queries are going to cause any performance impact on these systems. However, again, as we said, the disclaimer here is this is a free application with support being provided as possible. So absolutely run it against a test set, run it against a single day, a single 4-hour window, something like that. But we don't expect there to be any performance impact. We've run this against systems with millions of event records and not seen any performance impact. But again, using this on a production system, if you're concerned, take a backup of the database, restore it, run it against the backup. You're guaranteed no performance concerns. If that's not possible, then test appropriately, but we don't expect there to be any issues. Andy, anything else?
Yeah, I'll just pop this on the screen for a moment, just the disclaimer piece. And how do I get that? Okay, great. So this is just a simple disclaimer. Essentially, this is a free reporting tool, so there isn't any warranty or guarantees, and essentially we won't be held liable. I'm not going to read it to you, but please reference it if there's any questions. With that, if there are questions that you can't think of in this session, please feel free to reach out to psg@convergint.com. We will answer your question. The application is available. The application is available freely on the Convergint website, and it's going to have this presentation as well as a recording of this session. And I think that's it. Justin, do you want to look at that other question?
Yeah, I mean, the last question is, you know, how you could respond potentially to customers who are concerned about hacking into their systems with a fairly new application. You know, again, I think being able to provide the application, the documentation, or certainly, you know, if they have specific questions and would like to reach out, that's fine. The application can be run again against a backup of the database. It can be run on a system with no network connectivity. And if they're concerned beyond that, then they can just run reports out of their access control system. Honestly, as a free utility, this is, you know, being provided to them for their benefit. If they have concerns, totally valid. It's up to them to determine the level of comfort that they have in running this application. But again, you know, it doesn't require any outside network connectivity and does not save any of that information. So, you know, I would reassure them based on that. And if they're still not comfortable, then again, they always have the option of getting to this data directly from the access control system. It's going to be much more time consuming, but it's all that data is there for every one of these systems.
And the other piece I would throw out here is between all the individuals involved, you know, Detrios holds about, I think, 45 years of experience in the access control industry. I'm another 15. And, you know, we've all worked very hard and made names for ourselves in the fact that we're known as very much as trusted individuals out in the industry and experts. So, you know, yes, there are some valid concerns, but I would consider this no different than any integration. But if anything, this is much simpler than any type of integration because there's no installer, there's no services installed, there's nothing is leaving the application. It's entirely contained. So, you know, with that, with the level of expertise that's coming into this, I don't think there's really any level of concern. I think that this application is a great way to determine impact to an organization. And really the idea of getting this out is really to help people. That's the primary goal. And that's genuine and true. And the thing to remember is that we're all in this together. These are tough times for everybody, for you, me, everybody. It's very difficult, and this is how we help. It's the only way that I know how to help at this point in time, and I think that's probably true of, you know, I don't want to speak for Justin, but he probably feels that way as well. And, you know, this is really meant to help people. And I've said that 15 times in a row now, but, you know, that's why we're doing what we're doing, really, honestly.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, with that, I think looks like we don't have any new questions, don't have anything else that we need to talk about. If you have any questions, get them in quickly. Other than that, just want to thank everyone for taking the time to join this, to be on this. We really, again, as Detrios, I want to say thank you to all of you from Convergint who have taken the time to be on this, specifically to Andy for really helping put this all together and champion this inside of Convergint. And again, to Micah Carlson, who's really enabled this entire webinar format to happen. A lot of the marketing and the work around getting the word out there of this application has really been critical to that. So very sincere thank you to both of you for that, and to Convergint as an organization. Again, for the time, as well as just it's really refreshing to see the openness to working on a application like this that touches so many different systems, that works with different partners, some of which data are competing, and really to see this as a bigger effort than any of that. And so thank you guys.
And thank you, you know, Justin, and thank you, Micah. I echo those sentiments exactly. With that, if there are no other questions, you know, we will end the session. If there's something that pops into your head, again, psg@convergint.com. There is a link on the website as well for information in general about the application, and you will be able to download the application off of the website. I will respond back to everybody on this email thread with the link to be able to download. And if there are any questions, again, just please reach out. And thank you for your time and stay strong. All right, thank you.